Now that every single Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC track is out and the Booster Course Pass is finished, it's finally time to rank every single Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC track. I'll be ranking them based on how fun they are and their creativity. Now, please note, before I start the ranking, I just want to point out that this is my own personal opinion on what I like or not. And honestly, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, including its DLC, doesn't really have too many bad tracks. So even if a DLC track on this list is going low, that doesn't mean it's necessarily awful. It just has inconsistencies, or it could have been a lot better. But maybe that's just my opinion though. If you guys have different opinions, please put it in the comments below. Anyways, without further ado, let's begin this ranking. Coming in at number 48 and the worst DLC track is SNES Mario Circuit 3. It's just a plain and boring circuit track from Super Mario Kart with some turns and a shortcut. Nothing really much to say besides that. Like all the Super Mario Bros. Blocks in the background, but that's about it. Not necessarily an awful track, it's just boring, so I won't really play it again if I could. Coming in at number 47 is 3DS Toad Circuit. One thing I need to point out is how badly this track looks in comparison to Mario Kart 7. I'm not saying it looks awful, but in comparison to a game like Mario Kart 7 on how the grass looks, it looks so cartooning. Anyways, while I do like the massive Toad balloons, it's just a plain old circuit with a tunnel, a couple shortcuts, and a glider ramp that shows up lap 2. Up at number 46, and my third least favorite DLC track is Tokyo Blur. I do like the route changes every lap, and you go through different areas around Tokyo, Japan, but besides that, it's again not really that interesting of a city track, and it's short. At number 45, we have London Loop. This is a track where you travel around London, the city of England, and you do get to see a few interesting locations, and there is some chain chomps to avoid as well. The bridge also folds into a trickable ramp at the end, which is a neat touch. Otherwise, however, it's another city track that is kind of boring at a lot of times. Number 44, GBA Sunset Wilds. Sunset Wilds was one of my favorite tracks in Mario Kart Super Circuit to play. Unfortunately, I'm fairly disappointed about this remake. It is still fun to drive through with some turns, ramps, and some mining shy guys to avoid. The track also does look nice, but what ruins it is the sunset. Back in the original, the sunset background would change color every lap and would turn into nighttime, which was one of the most iconic moments of the track. But for some stupid reason, it isn't in this remake, and it's also a short track. If they added the sunset background, this track would be way higher on the list, but for now, it's only number 44 on the list. Number 43 is Paris Promenade. This is the very first Mario Kart Tour track that was added to the Mario Kart Deluxe Booster Course Pass. While I did really enjoy playing it when it first came out, I gotta admit that this track, compared to the ones above it, it's kind of boring. You travel through Paris in France, and I do like that you can glide through under the Eiffel Tower and get to bypass the Luxor Obelisk. By the way, I'm saying some of these locations for the very first time in this script, so please forgive me if I pronounce some of them wrong. Anyways, also at lap 3, you played the track backwards, which blew me away playing this track for the first time, but this track can also be boring at times, as sometimes it would just be going straight for like 5 to 10 seconds, so it's going to be at number 43. At number 42, we have New York Minute. This was the very first Mario Kart Tour City track in that game. While I do like the Times Square section that references Donkey Kong and some buildings, and other places that you go to that resemble New York, such as the Central Park, it's kind of another city track that doesn't have too much on the track besides the glider ramp section over sewage grids and cars and the tunnel at the end. 41, DS Mario Circuit. While this is another Mario Circuit, I do like how they remade this track. The fireballs that are being shot out of the piranha plants are actually an obstacle this time, and part of the track resembles a forest with a Wiggler snoring the first 2 laps, then becoming an obstacle lap 3. But in comparison to all the other tracks above it, it is another Mario Circuit, so there isn't too much besides that. 40, GBA Sky Garden. Sky Garden is another one of my favorite tracks from Mario Kart Super Circuit, but I'm very hit or miss about this remade version. On the positive side, I do love how they remade the track similar to the other GBA tracks, and I really love the remixed music. But then again, it doesn't really feel like Sky Garden at all. It feels very short, and some of the shortcuts on Sky Garden are missing, besides the new bouncing loop route and the off-road shortcut at the end. Normally, I love it when they remake these GBA tracks like new tracks, but the original Sky Garden was so good with all the routes and cuts you could take, and it doesn't really have many here. Number 39, Wii Daisy Circuit. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little disappointed that this was one of the Wii tracks chosen for Wave 6 instead of like Wii Bowser's Castle or something, but even then, it's still not a bad remake. I like this more than the original. It has beautiful scenery with the statues of Luigi and Daisy. It still kept the little escalator shortcut, and the cones are not so aggravating this time like they were in Mario Kart Wii, thank gosh. Besides that though, it's another circuit track, and also the remixed music is not as good as the original in my opinion, but in terms of playability, it's better than the original. 38, Wii DK Summon. This was one of the tracks I really loved in Mario Kart Wii, but this remake is honestly a mixed bag. I do love the remix music, again, and I love that they kept the double cut despite being very wonky to pull a lot of times, and they kept the snowboarding Shy Guys. However, this remade track also has some issues. For one, the cannon feels so slow compared to the original and not so exciting. Secondly, the half pipes can be very janky at times. Maybe it's just me, but sometimes the half pipes can feel a little too weird for Mario Kart Deluxe standards. Even with those issues, it's still a fairly decent track. And 33 comes Merry Mountain. This track has beautiful Christmas holiday vibes, and it's a very interesting track to drive through. I like the railroad alternate path you can take as well. What brings it down though is the fact that it can get a little boring sometimes, especially at the end when you're just going down the mountain and there's barely any boosts. 36, Madrid Drive. We have yet another city track from Tour. In this track, you drive around the city of Madrid, Spain, through different areas such as the Calle de Preciados and the Market of San Miguel. There's also a soccer field at the end of the track where shoe Goombas are kicking giant soccer balls for you to avoid. That's a really neat touch. Besides that though, it's kind of another city track with just a few turns, ramps, shortcuts, and a Coconut Mall reference, so not too much to say here besides that. At number 35, we have 3DS Rock Mountain. The remix music is really good, and I love the glider ramp section at the end of each hop tricking off the giant steam pipes. Besides that though, it can be fairly boring because while the gliding is fun, it's kind of what you're doing for half the lap in the track, and you're kind of just going straight at times down and up the mountain. Also, it looks okay, but it can totally look even better with the textures. Number 34, GCN Waluigi Stadium. I've got a lot of things to say about this track. For one, the ramps are still fun to trick off of, and they kept the half pipes in for Mario Kart Wii, which now can lead you to alternate paths, making them actually have a purpose besides just going faster. And it's nice that there isn't a huge chunk of off-road at the end like there was in Mario Kart Wii. However, what I don't like is how slippery the track can be. When you trick off the ramps, sometimes the slippery floor can cause you to run into the wall or get a little out of hand. So yeah, while I do like this track, I feel like the slippery ground can get a bit jarring, but maybe that's just me. 33, N64 Calamari Desert. First of all, the remix music absolutely slaps. Like, holy crap, it's fantastic. I didn't think it would be better than the original, but it is. Secondly, I'm happy that they kept the ramps and glider shortcuts they had in Mario Kart 7. And thirdly, you actually have to go through the train tunnel lap 2 with the train, which is a crazy touch. While I do like this track still, I would admit that there are moments where you're just going straight, and it can be easy to hit the train when you're playing against peeps online. And at number 32, we have Sky High Sunday. I really like the music, and it's a very interesting track to play on. Although, honestly, you can tell that it's not really a track made for Mario Kart Deluxe, considering the ramps worked for Mario Kart Tour. I honestly don't care, because maybe it's just me. I freaking love how floaty the track can be because of the anti-gravity the entire race. You can do some really satisfying shortcuts and go over chunks of the track because of the floatiness. Also, the desserts sure do look tasty in this track. So yeah, while this track was not really meant for Mario Kart Deluxe's physics, it's fun and satisfying seeing how floaty can be, so it's still a fun track either way. 1, Rome Avanti, another city track. This one looks very pretty at night. You travel around Rome, Italy, and you start in Via del Corso Coliseum and get to pass other cool locations like the Spanish Steps. There's also chain chomps in the Coliseum that are biting on the track as obstacles, which is pretty touching. This track does a very good job representing Rome, and it has some cool alternate paths. But again, it's another city track with not too much going on besides the scenery and a few obstacles and shortcuts. And now we have reached number 30, Moonview Highway. This was honestly a very unexpected track to pick for Wave 5, but it's still a great remade track. The remix music is fantastic, and they brought back the bump cars back from Mario Kart Wii, which is pretty cool. The only issues about this track is that the middle section of the track just has a lot of boosts, making it kind of hard to catch out, and also the cars aren't really an obstacle anymore as they're easy to avoid. Honestly though, the middle part of it being a lot of boosts, that's just an issue of the track in general, but it isn't a deal breaker or anything. It's still a great track. Number 29, Rosalina's Ice World. This is another one of the most unexpected tracks that Nintendo picked for Wave 6 this time. So many people, including me, did not predict this track to come to the DLC. Either way, it's a great remake. The section after the giant U-turn has half pipes and there's a ramp section at the end. Not really much to say about this track besides that it looks gorgeous in HD and it's really fun to play and just like the original. The only bad part about the track is the name, honestly. It's just so lame and not creative. Like, Rosalina's Ice World, like, seriously, what kind of name is that? That is the most lame name I've ever heard for a track. But it's not that big of a deal. 28, DS Peach Gardens, a DS track that I'm very happy was brought back. It looks gorgeous in HD with the garden statues and how the foreground looks. It's just so stunning to me that you play the track backwards on the final lap and go through the garden statues in the glider section, which is crazy. The only issue I can say about this remake is that it feels like the fun challenge from the original was gone, because there's no long grass tiles that you have to carefully drive around. They just made the turn sections plain old easy turns. Even then, I still love this remake. Number 27, GBA Blue Lake, a GBA track that got an amazing glow up of a remake just like a lot of the other GBA tracks. There's an underwater section now halfway through the lap with the shortcut from the original now being a grass shortcut, and the ramps are fun to trick off of as well. It truly is a lake now, and I love what they did. The only problem, again, is that it's short, but it's still a lot of fun. GBA Riverside Park is number 26. I honestly was hoping we would get Lakeside Park instead, because that was a track I really enjoyed back in Mario Kart Super Circuit, and other games in general like Mario Kart Wii CTGP Revolution. Riverside Park is great, don't get me wrong, but Lakeside Park was the one I was hoping. But even then, I gotta admit that the remake is gorgeous. It looks beautiful with the jungle atmosphere. There's piranhas that are shooting mushrooms or bananas above that you can try and hit, and the track has you up a tunnel where you trick off through the waterfall at the end. While this track is kinda short, that doesn't matter when you have a great and fun remake of a track. Next up is DS Shroom Ridge number 25. For a Wave 1 track, it's really great and has a lot to offer. It has a lot of the alternate cars that we see in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and the turns work well for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe standards. It also has some really cool shortcuts like the glider ramp and the wind shortcut you can take at the end. Overall, it's a great remake, and I feel like not too many people talk about this track, which is kinda sad in my opinion. At 24, we have Wii Mushroom Gorge. I was very happy with how they did this remake track. There's a really cool trick in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with these mushrooms where if you drift while you're hitting the mushrooms, you'll gain extra speed. That's honestly a really good Mario Kart 8 Deluxe exploit physics moment. I really like that. This remake added more mushrooms, so that's a good way to show Mario Kart 8 Deluxe physics. Anyway, this is a fun track. The tunnel section looks beautiful, and you can do the gap shortcut at the end if you have enough skill. That makes it enough for me to put this track fairly on the list. 23, Los Angeles Laps. It's a Mario Kart Tour track that has a lot to offer and it's very unique and fun. It starts off going through the Santa Monica Pier and Venice Beach. Then the track takes you through the Inglewood oil field, then you go over Dodger Stadium. It really brings Los Angeles to life, and this track takes place in an entirely different part of your lap, and it's really fun to drive through overall with some interesting obstacles. In 22, we have N64 Choco Mountain. I am very happy with how they recreated this track. It looks amazing and like an actual mountain for starters. Secondly, it has a very cool crystal gem cave to drive through, then a ramp to the cliff part of the map where you have to avoid falling boulders and you trick off ramps at the end. It's a really fun remake and I'm happy with what they did, and the music is still great. And number 21 is GBA Snowland. This is one of the best GBA tracks recreated in the DLC in my opinion. It features item boxes that move to the other side, penguins to avoid, a very interesting ice path, a shortcut at the end, and the remix is great. The best part through though is the snow hill shortcut they added halfway through the track into the ice section. I'm happy with how they did this track, and this game, considering the old version of Mario Kart Super Circuit, was just alright. 20, GCN Daisy Cruiser. A track that is through a cruise ship, and it's done really well. The track looks beautiful, and you go through different sections of the cruise ship. A couple of things that I love is that they added was that you can just swim through the pool like in Mario Kart 7 instead of going around, and there's actual Toads and Shy Guys eating at the tables that are moving. There's also the underwater tunnel section, which is a neat touch. 19, Wii Koopa Cape. This track is a classic. I don't know why people badmouth this remake, because I think it's still really good. It looks great. The remix is good, the track functions smoothly, and has the same shortcuts as the original. And yeah, obviously the tunnel section is now underwater and there's no zippers or water currents, but honestly, I don't really think it's a deal breaker because it's still the same classic Koopa Cape we all know of, and it's still a blast. Number 18, Bangkok Rush. I'm admittedly not that great at this track, but that doesn't matter as it's still a really good Mario Kart Tour track with a ton of really cool ramps and sections, and it's still fun. You travel through Bangkok, the capital city of Thailand. You start at the Grand Palace, and later will enter the Chao Phraya River with rowboats to trick off of. There's also wood planks or train tracks you can drive through. There's also elevated rail tracks and stopping malls to drive through, and you can go up some stairs to the Sky Train section, I mean. And at lap 3, you trick off the Fra Buddha Society. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that. There's just so much awesome stuff going on in this track that I can't help but really like, even if I'm not the best at it, but that's just me. 17. Amsterdam Drift. One of the most interesting Mario Kart Tour tracks to play on, and it's a ton of fun. You travel through Amsterdam in the Netherlands. You start off making a few turns, then gliding over a train and landing in a dirt road in between windmills with mountains and a shortcut ramp. You then go into a river, lap 2, and you can trick off geysers and trick off boats. You maneuver in between warp pipes with currents, then lap 3 you go backwards, enter the canal again, and then come out on the tulip fields, avoiding piranha plants. I really love the different approach they went on the track. Each lap is based on one kind of Amsterdam drift track from Mario Kart Tour, so overall really good track for that reason. It's still a ton of fun to drive through. 16. Wii Maple Treeway. It's the same Maple Treeway from Mario Kart Wii we always love, where you enter a cannon leading into an autumn tree, then you travel through the branch turns, avoiding wigglers, and they kept the half pipe at the end. One of the only different parts is that the end features a ramp instead of the cagey trick section from Mario Kart Wii, which is totally fun, but was missed. And they kept the beginning shortcut, which is always nice. Not too much to say besides what the track is. It's just a great remake that looks absolutely gorgeous in HD. Number 15, we have GCN DK Mountain. I actually like what they did with this remake. It's the amazing track that we know of, where you enter a cannon going up the mountain, and then you're driving back down the mountain. There's a few things I really like in this remake. Not only does it look stunning in HD, but the bridge at the end isn't as scary as there is trickable sections, which is honestly nice. And they did the gap shortcut at the end in a very unique, fun way for Mario Kart Wii. The track also feels very smooth to play, so overall, great track to play on, just like the original. 14. Berlin Byways. Okay, the first thing I totally need to point out is the music. It absolutely slaps, and it's so freaking amazing. The track itself is also has a lot to offer. You start at the Berlin Cathedral and drive through the Brandenburg Gate. Then you later merge into traffic and take a right turn and trick off a few ramps into a train section. Second lap, you drive through Brandenburg Gate once again, and you take a left turn through the Berlin Zoo with a few other challenging turns and cars and thwomps to avoid. On the third lap, you pass the Berlin Wall with whomps to avoid, and then go around another building with a separate boost path and a few tricky turns. So yeah, while the track is a lot of fun and interesting to drive through, I think the music is the best part about it, and it puts it this high on this list. 13. Wii Coconut Mall. One of the most legendary ideas for a track, and this remake is really good just like the original. There are escalators to drive through, ramps to trick off of, different paths to take, 2 different glider sections at the end, and there are cars at the end that can move around and possibly ram you. One of my favorite parts of the track is how it looks. It looks amazing with all the amazing details, such as the variety of different stores and signs to drive through, and with how some of the textures look, such as the 2D Mario on the walls during one of the turns. Not really much to say besides that. It's just an already amazing track being remade in HD and looking and playing amazing. Next up, in number 12, we have Vancouver Velocity. This track looks absolutely gorgeous for starters, with how the snow and city environment looks with the aurora in the background. It's also very cool to play on a track. You travel around Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and there's a lot of awesome stuff happening. The Capilano suspension bridge is now an interesting anti-gravity section. You take a glider ramp into a city and then later an ice rink arena after going through a bunch of ramps in a city section. There's a lot of very interesting stuff going on, and it's a blast to play and see what awesome stuff they did to recreate what was a Mario Kart Tour track. 11. Sydney Sprint. By far one of the best city tracks. There's so much fun to be had, and there's a lot of awesome locations to visit with this track. You start off going through the Sydney Opera House, and then go in a glider ramp, entering a turn around Luna Park, and then tricking ramps as you're crossing the Sydney Harbor Bridge. There's also tops that are throwing coins from the train, which is another neat touch. Then you go through a winning narrow path, split down the middle, and then crossing the Harbor Bridge again backwards, and then you're driving the track backwards lap 3. This is one of my favorite Mario Kart Tour city tracks, and it doesn't feel like there is much jank to be had with this one, which makes it really fun to drive through and see all the amazing detail. And the music is really good as well. And here we are, the top 10 best Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC tracks. Here we go. Number 10, Piranha Plant Cub. I can't believe I put an underwater track this high on the list, but I can't tell you how stupid fun this track is and what it has to offer. You drive past some ruins before leaving the water to drive on a stone structure. After taking a right turn in the water again, you drive on a wooden pier into an island which leads to a glider ramp while avoiding piranha plants. In the second lap, you take a few left turns through some building ruins. Then the third lap, you drive through an underwater shipwreck section in Clampies with a giant eel from Mario 64 to avoid. This track, being creative, has a lot to offer and is a blast to drive through, and with shortcuts you can take across gaps makes it a top 10 best DLC track for me. Number 9, Athens Dash. One of the more interesting approaches for a Mario Kart Tour track, and it was done really well. You drive through Athens, Greece, and there are a ton of really different cool landmark sections of the city, like the bleachers. This track largely tries to keep the city proper to the background, and it takes many liberties regarding its design, like the pillars taking functionality to trick off of. At lap 3, you can glide through some buildings that you can trick off of with a few turns, a half-pipe section, and boulders to avoid. And it ends with some fast-paced ramps. This track is so creative, and it's a blast overall. Definitely one of the top 10 DLC tracks. Number 8, SNES Bowser Castle 3. I cannot explain how amazing and one heck of a glow-up this remake is compared to the original that was just okay. It literally feels like a new track. First of all, it's so much fun in both 150cc and 200cc game modes to drive through. Secondly, the remake looks amazing. And thirdly, it has so much to offer with all the alternate ramps, fire bubbles to avoid. The second half of the track features a giant rail section that you can choose to ride on. And at the end, there's a ramp with thwomps underneath the trick off of. This is exactly the kind of remake that Nintendo should do for every 2D track. It is a masterpiece of a SNES track remake. Number 7, Wii Rainbow Road. I was a little worried with how they would recreate this track in HD, considering it was a track that maybe was meant for Mario Kart Wii physics. But my gosh, this remake is fantastic, just like the original one from Mario Kart Wii. The Rainbow Road ground looks great. It has the same great half-pipes and star cannon. The music is amazing, the ramps are fun to trick off of, and they fit well for this game. And best of all, they kept in the gap shortcut for Mario Kart Wii, which is fantastic. They literally showed it in the trailer for Wave 6. Didn't think they would remake a great Mario Kart Wii track so well, but they sure did it. Number 6, Squeaky Clean Sprint. One of the most unique and creative tracks to drive through of all time. It's also really fun at the same time. You start off driving through the sink, then you're passing through radios, books, tennis balls, and other cool supplies. Then you end up landing in a bathtub underwater with a Goomba outside of it on top. Then you swim through the water plug, which is full of dirt and a wedding ring that was accidentally tossed up in there. Then you're going through a slippery section with soap into a glide ramp where you're gliding over the toilet into a couple alternate paths going through towels. I can't bring how wild and creative this track gets. It's insane. I would have put it on top 5, but then again, I will admit that the water plug tunnel section can be a little rough at times. Especially if you're playing online. Besides that, one of the best tracks in the DLC. Number 5, Singapore Speedway. This is the best Mario Kart Tour City track of all time. First of all, the music absolutely slaps. This track actually is not only creative, but also has so many awesome things going on in this track. You start off flying through a cannon to the roof of the Marina Bay Sands where you dodge Goombas in floating tubes. Then you glide back down over a soccer field. Lap 2, you go into Chinatown and through Merlion Park. Then you glide over some beautiful water streams into the final lap where you're going through dash panels and a beautiful bridge. And it ends with you gliding over a big part of the city with boost rings and all sorts of alternate paths to take. It also looks gorgeous with the textures and how the sky looks. It is without a doubt the best city track from Mario Kart Tour in this game, with it being fun and interesting the entire way through. Number 4, Yoshi's Island. I still can't believe Nintendo actually made a Mario Kart track based on the classic Yoshi's Island SNES game. And my gosh, it's one of the best tracks, not only remade from Mario Kart Tour, but also one of the best DLC tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. There are so many enemies and obstacles to avoid that are based on the original game, like the Shy Guys with shoe poles at the beginning, or the Ducklings with their babies as well. And also, the track is really fun to play in. You go through an underwater section, then a cave dungeon, glide over a volcano into a cloud section, and at the end, if you're able to hit the mystery flying object, it will give you an alternate path to take that is faster when you go through a ring at the end. The remix music is amazing, and when you finish a race, it plays the same music that is played when you beat a level in Yoshi's Island. It's nothing short of a nostalgic and amazing track. Number 3, DS Waluigi Pinball. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you are not surprised to see this so high. It's just an amazing track in general, and I absolutely adore this remake compared to the originals. It looks amazing for starters, with all the beautiful pinball effect lights and how the road looks. And it's just amazing to drive through. You literally go through pinball machine like you're the pinball by going down a series of turns and ramps that a pinball normally takes, and then it ends with a pinball machine with pinballs you need to avoid, and the item boxes have pinball sound effects. I was a little worried with how they would remake it, considering I only liked it okay Mario Kart Wii CGP Revolution mod, but this is truly amazing. One of the best tracks in the ranking. Number 2, Ninja Hideaway. Yup, I did just put a Wave 1 track this high on the list, and it's the best Mario Kart short track I've ever played. You drive through a literal ninja house. There are so many alternate paths to take that are interesting. The music is great. There's some fun shortcuts I like to pull off in this track. You drive through the rooftop parts of it at the end. It's so creative. This track has it all. One of the best ones ever in the DLC. And the number 1 best Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC track is, say it with me, 3DS Rainbow Road. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous on how they would recreate this one because I was worried that they were gonna recreate it in a way where it wouldn't at all fit Mario Kart 8 Deluxe physics. But my gosh, they made this remake amazing. It's not really a surprise that this is the number 1 spot. It's still today one of the best Rainbow Roads to offer. It literally has everything I love about a Mario Kart track. It looks amazing with the racetrack and how the space environment background looks. It has so many fun and interesting sections like tricking up different ramps, bouncing up a mushroom into a part of the track, gliding into Saturn, boosting and tricking through more parts of the track, ending up in the freaking moon with anti-gravity, and on the final lap you go through boost panels, a freaking spinning tunnel ramp that is gliding through boost rings and ramps below avoiding meteors. The remix music is amazing and it's so much fun to drive through. I don't know what else I need to say. This is totally my favorite DLC track of Mario Kart Deluxe, and I don't think I will change my mind ever. Wow. And that was all the DLC tracks. Overall, this Booster Course Pass DLC, while it came out so late, it was still an amazing experience to have, with not only adding so many new tracks, but also new characters and other fun modes. Makes this DLC worth it in my opinion. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, but I think after so long, it's finally time for Nintendo to actually make a new Mario Kart game. I really hope we won't have to wait too long for it to come out, but I'm not gonna hold my breath. Now, before this video ends, I'm sure you're wondering, oh, I never ever did the regular Mario Kart Deluxe tracks. Why? Well, I only did the DLC tracks because that would be a lot of work doing all 96 tracks in this game, which I know is a lot, and talking at least a minute about each one, that would make the video extremely long. But if you guys want me to make a video in the future where I rank every regular Mario Kart 8 Deluxe track that has been in the game for the whole time, then please let me know. I'll be happy to do it in the future. And maybe if I do end up doing it, maybe I'll make an extra video once I finish that one, ranking every single track in this game overall. I might even be working on that right now. Anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video because it took quite some time to make this video, so if you would do me a favor, please like and subscribe because it helps me out with a lot, and comment down below what your opinions are, and if you disagree with some of my placings on this list. Anyway, without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. See ya, peeps.